I'll be a better man today. I'll be good, I'll be good. And I'll love the world like I should. Yeah, I'll be good for all of the time that I never could.
Wake up, Gideon. That voice penetrated my dream. With it came the most intense pain I had ever felt in my head. I grabbed my head. Ah! I opened my eyes and was not surprised to see the preacher standing in front of my hotel window with his hands folded behind his back, much like he had done while I was in the hospital. This guy was really starting to get on my nerves. I sat up in the bed, taking in my surroundings. I blinked. The last thing I remember was trying to rip that fraud's head off and not being able to do it. He's strong like me, I said, thinking out loud. The preacher nodded his head. He is. How is that possible? I thought I was the only one. He turned to look at me. How vain of you to think so. You're not the only one. In fact, you and Lion are not the only two. There are more of you. I shook my head and regretted it instantly. I put my hand to my head as the pain felt so intense. It felt like my skull was splitting open. I don't understand, I said. Why? Why what? Why are we like this? For what purpose? He came and took a seat in the chair that was not too far from the foot of my bed. You are the battle axes of Yah. Battle axes? He nodded. Thus says Yah, you are my battle axes, weapons of war. And with you I shall break nations in pieces. And with you I shall destroy reigns. And with you I shall break in pieces the horse and its rider. And with you I shall break in pieces the chariots and its rider. And with you I shall break in pieces man and woman. And with you I shall break in pieces the old and the young. And with you I shall break in pieces the young and the maiden. And with you I shall break in pieces the shepherd and his flock. And with you I shall break in pieces the farmer and his yoke of oxen. And with you I shall break in pieces governors and rulers. And I shall repay Babel and all the inhabitants of the Chaldea for all the evil that they had done in Sion before your eyes, declares Yah. He leaned forward in his chair, looking me straight in my eyes. So the answer to why you and the others are like you are, my brother, is simple. Yah have created you to break things in pieces. He sat back in his chair then, folding his hand across his stomach. I stared at him for a moment. I cannot refute what he had just said. I did enjoy breaking things. Where's my son? How did I get here? What happened? Monroe is fine. He's still asleep in the next room. Your men brought you here. And as to what happened to you, I cannot say fully. You were fighting with your brother, and the man with no shoes appeared. And then after that, I don't know. My brother? Nah, I wasn't fighting with my brother. I was fighting with my enemy, the man who killed my brother. He smiled, and I ain't gonna lie, it made me a little uncomfortable. So, you came here to kill a man, and then what? I eyed him before I spoke. I don't know how much of my business I wanted to tell him. Tell me the truth, Gideon. It is fruitless to lie to me. I exhaled. I came to get my woman back. He nodded. What if I told you that even as we speak, another man has taken her in his arms? He is kissing her and touching her in a way that only you should. What would you say? I blinked, looking at him. When my eyes opened again, I saw red. Instantly, I looked down to my gun holster. It was missing, and so was my gun. I would say, I told him, looking around, that he's getting ready to die. What the hell was my guns? I didn't like being without them. I made to get up from the bed, but the preacher stuck his hand out, stopping me. Relax, son. Sophia has not been with another man. Neither has a man assaulted her. But remember how you're feeling now, and then let me tell you a story. Your brother, Lion, was with his wife and children, who he loves very much. The same way you feel about Sophia is how he feels about Nuria. He heard her scream and looked up to see your brother grabbing her and touching her against her will. I ask you, Gideon, what would you have done if that were you and Nuria was Sophia? I sat back in my bed, floored, because the truth is, I don't give a damn who it is. If they put their hands on Sophia, I was taking them out. No questions asked. So you see, your brother did what he felt he had to do. Look, man, I didn't know the details about what happened. And now that I do, I'll admit that I would have done the same thing. But that still don't make us brothers. My brothers are the men who fight and die next to me. Always have been, always will be. The preacher nodded. Well said. Which brings me to my next point. I want to help you get Sophia back. But if I help you, you have to do something for me. I frowned at him. What makes you think I need your help getting my lady back? I think I can handle it. Really? Because I beg to differ. You're not in the Dominican Republic anymore. Sophia is safely behind her father's walls. How do you plan to get her back? Kidnap her? He shook his head. She would never forgive you. You know, if you did that again. So what's your plan B? Killing her father? Forget about it. She won't have nothing to do with you after that. Man, he had some valid points. And for some reason, that was really irritating me. Well, what do you suggest I do? He smiled. I suggest you let me take you and introduce you to her father as a young man new to the truth. Her dad will be thrilled to take you in, and your son, and teach you both about Yah. And then I'm sure once you're in, you can take it from there. I looked at him, impressed with his plan. Of course I didn't let him know that. Hell, to tell you the truth, I really didn't have no idea how I was going to get her to talk to me again. Okay, let's just say I agree to that. What do you want in return? I want you to allow Lion to train you. Train me? I ain't all that impressed with his fighting skills. The preacher chuckled. I mean spiritually. I thought that was why you was introducing me to Sophia's dad, so that he could teach me and my son about Yah. He shook his head. Brother Yirmiah cannot teach you the things you need to know to be a warrior of Yah. Only Lion can. What about you? Why don't you teach us? I don't know where Yah will lead me tomorrow, son, was all he said. I sat back against the headboard thinking about his request. Man, I don't think I could put up with lying for more than a few minutes before I'd be ready to snap his neck. But if he introduced me to Sophia's dad and he invited me in, that was all I would need. I missed her so much. I was starved to taste her again. Damn. Alright, man. I'll try, but I can't make no promises. If he even look at me the wrong way, I'ma shoot him. The preacher smiled. Fair enough, he said, standing to his feet. Gather your boy. Be ready to go in 30 minutes. Today is the Shabbat, so this is the perfect day to make introductions. I refilled Ima Sarah's glass on autopilot. My emotions were a wreck, and for the life of me, I could not get them together. He is alive. He's alive. And he's here. Oh, Father Yah, he's here. Oh, Ima cried out, trying to catch the water that I was spilling with her hands. I blinked down at her. Ima, I'm so sorry, I said, grabbing a handful of napkins to wipe up the water. Goodness, I had to focus. Brother Yirmiyah, how are you? I frowned at the sound of the preacher's voice, coming from the side of the house. We had prepared the backyard for fellowship today, so because of the high wood fence, I could not see what was going on at the side door. What was the preacher doing here? Hey, preacher, come in, I heard my father say. I strained my neck to see in the house, but I couldn't, so I turned around and quickly cleaned up the rest of the water. There you are, Ima. I am so sorry, I told her, picking up her empty glass, heading for the slide doors on the deck. I wondered if the preacher had news of Gideon. I walked into the house, through the kitchen. When I walked into the living room, my legs froze. The glass in my hand crashed to the floor. Oh my goodness. Gideon, Monroe, and Wolf were standing in my living room talking to my father. Oh, he was so big. He just filled the room with his presence. I'm sorry, I said, going down to my knees to pick up the glass with hands that shook. A shadow covered me. I didn't have to look up to know it was Gideon. Everything within me responded to his closeness. He squatted down next to me. A big dark hand covered mine, stilling my shaking movements. Gently he rubbed up my hand to palm the golden cuff he had put there. I watched his hand caress the gold, remembering how his hands had once touched me in ways that made my body sing. Here, let me help you. I closed my eyes as his deep voice washed over me. I was so afraid. I was too afraid to look up in his face. What's the matter, Princessita? You look like you've seen a ghost, he said for only my ears. I looked up then. His eyes were angry. He was angry with me, angry for leaving him dying on the ground. Tears came to my eyes. What could I say in the face of that? Quickly, I grabbed the last of the glass and stood. I held out my hand so that he could put the pieces he had in it. And somehow he still managed to put the pieces of glass in my hand and still wrap his big hand around mine. I snatched my hand out, and then I turned, going back into the kitchen, dumping the glass in the trash. I put my hand on the wall, leaning my head against it, collecting myself. Was Gideon here to hurt me? Or my father? Oh no, my dad! Quickly, I made my way back into the living room. Gideon watched me the whole time. He didn't even try to hide the fact that he wanted, well, I don't know what he wanted, but he wasn't hiding it. He stared at me as if he was a wolf and I a steak. I hid my trembling hands in my pocket, and I tried not to notice how good he looked. So good. He wore a pair of jeans, Timberland boots, and a black tee. Hallelujah, he didn't have on that holster. His eyes took me in the same way I took him in. He looked at me in that way that I missed so much. He looked at my face, my hair, my neck, my body. Sophia, come here, princess. Let me introduce you to this Ak and his son. They're new to the truth. When my father called me princess, Gideon's angry eyes flew to him, and that little muscle began to tick in his cheek. He looked at my father like he wanted to, oh yeah, what was happening here? I smiled. At least I tried to, walking to stand next to my dad, who put his arm around me, pulling him close. Gideon's gaze fell to where my father's hand lay on my shoulder. Fellas, this is my daughter Sophia. Sophia, this here is Gideon. He gestured toward Gideon, who held out his hand for me. My hand shook as I lifted it to his. He took it in his big warm one, holding it in a way that made me remember the last time he held me close. It's really good to meet you, he said. And his deep voice it was working havoc on my being. And I was drowning in his gaze. Slightly, so slightly, he pulled my hand as if he wanted to pull me in his arms. I took a step closer to him, but then my dad's arm tightened around my shoulder, pulling me back. I snatched my hand away from his. His nostrils flared. He looked so angry. That's when I realized he wanted to pull me away from my father. His eyes fell to where my dad's hand rested on my shoulder again, and that little muscle ticked in his jaw. All right, young man, that is enough. I know my daughter is beautiful, but please don't ever try to get fresh with her, because then I would have to ask you to leave and not let you come back. Gideon's angry eyes flew up to my dad. I held my breath, waiting for him to say something that would just destroy me right now. But right then, the preacher put his closed hand to his mouth and cleared his throat. Gideon looked at him, before he looked back at my dad with a forced smile on his face. Yes, sir, of course. Please forgive me. My dad eyed him. Don't you worry. I'll be keeping an eye on you. He pulled me away from Gideon. I turned to peek back at him. He watched me with hungry eyes, and then he licked his lips, and I tripped. My dad caught me. Uh-oh, princess, you okay, he asked? I nodded. This young man here is Gideon's son. What's your name again, Ben? My dad asked Monroe, who was standing there with a pair of dark shades over his eyes. He wore the world's biggest grin on his handsome face. Monroe, sir, he said, between chuckles. Y'all, Monroe was a little off. I really didn't think he had all the tools in his toolbox. Seriously. Well, my dad said, taking in the picture that the youth made. I know he was quite the conundrum. His tall, lean body was strong and muscled. The boy had the face of an angel. Literally, he was that handsome, with a head full of snowy white hair. Although his little beard and mustache that had begun to come in was jet black. And my poor dad was looking at the kid, trying to make sense of it all. You can take your shades off, young man. You are inside, my father said to him. Monroe looked over at his father, who shook his head no a little, before turning back to us. With a big smile on his face, he slowly took off his glasses. I sucked in my breath. What happened to your eyes? I asked, lifting my hands to his lids, pulling them up slightly to try and see what was going on. Around both of his irises was a white ring. He shrugged. I don't know. When I woke up this morning, they were like this. I pulled down his bottom lid. His blood vessels, they all looked fine. My dad stared at the kid with his mouth open. He's probably just coming down with some kind of eye infection or something, Gideon said, drawing my dad's attention back to him. And boy, did he draw it. My dad walked back to stand in front of him and the preacher. How long have you said you known this young man here, preacher? My dad looked at Gideon, fully taking him in. Long enough to know he's a good man, and he will be a true and faithful servant to Yah. All he needs is a good teacher. I thought about you. Of course, that puffed my dad's chest right up. I put my hand over my mouth to cover my smile. You see, I know how the preacher really felt about my dad. Well, you have brought them to the right place. I will say that. They are in good hands. I will personally take them under my wing. Come, fellas, let me introduce you to everyone else. The preacher and I watched as my dad paraded Gideon and Monroe around. I shook my head. I loved my old man, but he was shameless. Are you going to be all right? The preacher asked. I shook my head again. I don't know. Why is he here? Because he needs you. I looked up at him. What about my dad? The preacher smiled down at me. Yah didn't make you for your dad, Bot. And then he turned and walked out of the front door, leaving Gideon, Monroe, and Wolf here in my home. I walked back out to the yard and eased down in my chair, watching as my dad puffed around like a peacock with our new guests. Please take a seat and we'll begin, he told them. And of course, Gideon and Monroe came to the table that I sat at. Monroe took the seat right next to mine. Gideon sat at the head of the table where he could have the perfect view of me. As soon as he said, his eyes landed on me. I brought my hand up to touch one of the golden cups, something I had taken to do because it brought comfort, they being all I had left of Gideon. I looked at them, too afraid to look up at him, even though I felt his eyes consuming me. What did he want? Did he want to hurt me? Did he want to put me back in chains? Was he here to make me pay for leaving him? I put my hand on my stomach that was only slightly protruding. What would he do when he find out that I am pregnant?